The galaxy was dying slowly, not from war or hunger, but from silence. Alien worlds once full of life now stood quiet. Not a cry of a baby or laugh of a child was heard. A virus had spread across many systems, making most females infertile, especially on the planet Valaria, ruled by a proud alien queen and her people. They were tall, beautiful, and strong. Their skin shimmered in light purple hues. Their eyes glowed like stars, but their wombs no longer carried life. For years they searched for a cure, for answers, but found none, until one day, a desperate plan was made, the breeding lottery, every few cycles. A small group of males from different species would be brought to the palace, tested for compatibility, and one would be selected to try to bring life back to the royal bloodline. It was both an honor and a curse. Most were never seen again. This time, something strange happened. One of the captives was a human. He was smaller than the other males. His skin was tan, his hair dark, and his eyes full of something no other male had: defiance. His name was Jace. He had been taken from Earth months ago, sold from one alien hand to another, treated like property, but he never gave in, and now, here he stood in the cold marble hall of the palace, surrounded by giants who whispered and stared at him like he was a toy. Why is he here? One noblewoman asked with a sneer. Humans are too fragile, too wild, another added. But the queen did not speak. Her silver robe flowed behind her as she moved closer, her eyes studying Jace, not with hatred, but with curiosity. Then she turned to the scientists. Test him, she ordered. Jace was taken to a private chamber. Metal arms scanned his body. Strange lights blinked. Data flowed across holographic screens. The aliens expected nothing, but their eyes widened with shock. He is 92% compatible with royal genetics, one scientist whispered. That's higher than any species we've tested, said another, their voices trembling. Whispers spread like fire through the palace. The queen said nothing, but deep inside, she felt something stir, something she hadn't felt in decades. Hope. That night, the queen stood in her private quarters, staring at her reflection. Could a human truly awaken life inside her again? Was this nature's joke, or a hidden gift? Unseen, behind the royal curtains, the queen's daughter listened. She was young, curious, and rebellious. Unlike her mother, she still believed in love. And when she had seen Jace earlier in the hall, something inside her had fluttered, a warmth she couldn't explain. Now, hearing that he might be the chosen one, her heart raced. She knew she wasn't supposed to be there, but she couldn't stop herself. Meanwhile, Jace sat alone in a golden cell, larger than any room he had seen before. Food was served, soft cushions were offered, but he trusted none of it. He knew something was coming, and he needed to be ready. He wasn't stupid. He had heard whispers in the hall about breeding, about tests, about being chosen, and yet he wasn't afraid. If this was how he would survive, then so be it. But he wouldn't be their pet. He wouldn't be a slave. He would be something more, something they didn't expect. The doors opened suddenly. A royal guard entered, bowing low. "The queen has summoned you," she said. Jace stood tall, his jaw tight, but he followed, step by step through glittering halls and past curious eyes, until he stood before a door taller than any he had seen. It opened slowly. Inside was the queen, standing by a window, her back to him. "You may speak," she said softly. Jace didn't bow. He didn't kneel. He just stood there and said, "What do you want from me?" The queen turned, her face unreadable. "To see if you are truly what they say you are." Jace met her eyes, unshaken. "And what if I am?" The queen stepped closer. For the first time in centuries, she felt uncertain. This human wasn't like the others. He didn't fear her. He didn't flatter her. He simply stood like an equal. Behind the wall, the daughter clutched her chest, her breath quick and shallow. Something deep inside told her this was only the beginning, and she was right, because that night everything changed, and soon the galaxy would too. The royal chamber was silent, the air thick with tension. Outside, the twin moons of Valaria shined softly, casting a silver glow through the tall crystal windows. The queen stood near the edge of her balcony, her long hair brushing against her back, her mind racing with questions. She had ruled for over a century, fought wars, crushed rebellions, and led her people through famine and plague. But tonight, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Nerves. The human, Jace, had passed every test, even the impossible ones. His DNA had awakened dormant cells in her body, signals the medic said hadn't been seen in any female of her kind for generations. Still, she couldn't trust numbers alone. She had to feel it. She had to test it the old way, herself. When Jace entered the queen's chamber, he expected guards, maybe machines, maybe another test tube to poke and scan him. But instead, he found her alone, standing in a soft white gown that shimmered like starlight. No crown, no soldiers, just her. "You summoned me," Jace said quietly. The queen turned slowly, her face unreadable. "I did," she replied. "Do you know why?" He took a breath. "You want to see if I can make you pregnant." The queen raised an eyebrow, surprised by his bluntness. "Yes," she said after a pause. "But not just that." She walked toward him, slowly, like a hunter circling prey. "I want to understand you." Jace didn't move, then asked. The queen looked into his eyes, and for a moment, she saw no fear, no arrogance, only truth. So she asked, "Do you hate me?" Jace's answer came quickly. "No," he said. "I hate being owned, being treated like a thing." The queen's jaw tightened slightly, but she nodded. "Fair," she said. "Then tonight, you are not owned, not caged, not tested." She reached out and gently touched his hand. "Tonight, you are free." That touch, light as air, sent a strange warmth through both their bodies. It wasn't like any scan, any machine. This was real. And in that moment, they both knew. This night would not be a royal procedure. It would be something far more personal. Behind the walls, hidden in a dark corner of the castle, the queen's daughter stood alone. Staring at the glow of her communicator, she had accessed the medical files. And what she saw had shaken her to her core. Her mother's body had reacted to the human's presence in a way no science could fully explain. Not just compatibility, but activation, like he had woken something inside her that had been asleep for decades. And now, she could feel it too, even though she hadn't touched him, hadn't spoken to him beyond that one short moment in the gardens. Her heart beat faster whenever she thought of him, and worse, she had started dreaming of him. Warm dreams, strange dreams. She clenched her fists, confused, angry, and yet curious. What was this man? What kind of human could change an entire species by just being himself? Back in the chamber, the queen and Jace sat close, sharing quiet words. He told her about Earth, about family, about struggle. She listened, truly listened, and for the first time in years, she felt small, not weak, but human. Then came the moment. The queen reached forward, placing her hand on his chest, feeling the beat of his heart. He did the same, gently resting his palm against her skin. Her eyes fluttered shut. A soft glow pulsed where their bodies met. Her body reacted instantly. Warmth flooded through her, a surge of energy like fire. She gasped softly, looking down. Her skin lit with gentle blue light, her core responding, accepting. It was happening. Connection was made. Jace looked into her eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "It's working." No words were needed after that. What happened between them wasn't forced, wasn't cold or calculated. It was strange, emotional, unexpected. Two beings from opposite worlds, locked in a moment that would rewrite history. Hours passed, and by morning, the queen lay still beside Jace, silent, thoughtful, her fingers lightly touching her belly. She felt it. Life, small but real, beginning to grow. She didn't speak a word, but tears filled her eyes. Not from pain, but from joy. She was pregnant. For the first time in over 70 years. An air was growing inside her, not from science, not from cloning, but from a real living man, a human. But what she didn't know was that far across the palace, her daughter sat alone, tears in her eyes, because deep inside her own body, something had changed too, and that secret would shake the galaxy. The royal gardens of Velaria stretched wide like a dream. Glowing plants shimmered in soft blues and purples. Alien butterflies danced through the air, and the sweet scent of starfruit filled the breeze. But tonight, Princess Sarala felt none of its beauty. She walked alone between the glowing trees, her long cloak dragging across the silver grass, her mind heavy with questions she couldn't speak aloud. Inside her chest, a strange tightness had grown since the night before. Since he arrived, she couldn't stop thinking about the human Jace. At first, it was just curiosity. The way he stood unafraid in the Queen's Hall, the way he spoke without begging, the way he looked at her, not like a royal, not like a prize, but like a person. That alone had shaken her. But then came the secret medical file she had stolen. From the palace records, she had seen the scans with her own eyes. Her mother was pregnant. The impossible had happened, and the source of that miracle was Jace. And now, Sarala couldn't ignore the strange feelings growing in her own body. Her heartbeat quickened, her skin flushed with warmth. She felt restless, hungry, and most of all, drawn to him. Why? She whispered into the dark garden. Why him? Just then, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned sharply, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. It was him, Jace. He had been wandering too, unable to sleep, his mind buzzing with questions. When he stumbled into the garden and saw her there, standing like a statue under the glowing trees. "Oh," he said, stopping a few steps away. "I didn't mean to bother you." Sarala stared at him in silence. The silence stretched long and thick. Then she said softly, "You're not supposed to be here." Jace gave a small smile. "Neither are you, I guess." That made her blink, surprised. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Equal calm. Without fear or worship, she found it refreshing. She looked down, unsure what to say next. "Do you come here often?" Jace asked, stepping closer. "It's peaceful." "Yes," she replied, then quickly added, "I mean, it helps me think." Jace nodded. "Same." For a few long moments, they just stood in silence. Two strangers from different worlds, breathing the same night air, hearing the same quiet wind, feeling the same unspoken energy pass between them. Then Sarala spoke again, her voice lower. "You spent the night with my mother." Jace stiffened slightly, unsure how to answer. "Yes," he said. "I didn't really have a choice." Sarala looked up sharply. "Did she force you?" Jace shook his head. "No. But it wasn't love either. It was something else. Survival, maybe." That made Sarala pause. She didn't know why. But his words hurt a little, not because of what happened, but because he spoke them with sadness. Like he didn't want to be there, like no one had asked what he felt. She sat down on a large glowing root, motioning for him to join her. He did. "You're different," she said after a moment. "From what?" he asked. "From every male I've ever seen," she answered. "They kneel, they beg, they obey. But you speak your truth, even when it's dangerous." Jace gave a soft laugh. "On Earth, if you don't speak your truth, no one hears you at all." They both smiled, the tension between them slowly melting. Sarala looked at him closely now. His eyes, his face, his scent, everything about him felt alive, more real than the perfect alien she had grown up around. And before she could stop herself, she asked, "Do you think you could love someone from here?" Jace looked at her, surprised by the question, but not angry. He took a moment, then said, "I don't know, but I think if someone treated me like a person, not a tool, maybe." That made her heart skip a beat. She stood suddenly, flustered, not sure what to do with the heat in her chest. "I should go," she said. "Wait," Jace said, standing too. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then answered, "Sarala." He smiled. "Sarala," he repeated softly. "That's beautiful." She turned and walked away quickly, not daring to look back. But that night, in her private chamber, Sarala couldn't sleep. Her hand rested gently over her lower belly, her breath shallow. Something inside her was changing, and it wasn't just emotion. She had started to feel the same warmth her mother described to the doctors. And deep down, she knew the truth. She was pregnant too. The palace was quiet, but tension filled every wall like a storm waiting to break. Two secrets lived inside it now, growing, beating, breathing, and both came from the same man in the Queen's chambers. Early light spilled through the windows as the royal doctor knelt by her bedside. She wore no crown, only a silk robe, her hair loose, her face pale but glowing from within. The doctor looked up from the scan, his voice trembling. "Confirmed, my queen. The child inside you is alive and strong." The queen didn't answer at first. Her hand rested over her belly, her eyes locked on the soft pulsing light of the screen. For so many years, she had ruled without hope, led without love, fought without rest, and now she was going to be a mother again, and not from any lab, not from a clone tank, but from him. The human. Her fingers gripped the blanket tightly as emotions swirled. Pride, fear, wonder outside her door. Someone watched. Princess Sarala stood frozen, hidden in the shadows, her chest rising and falling quickly, her throat dry. The scan in her own hand still fresh, still glowing. She looked down again to check. Pregnant. She was pregnant too. Same father, same blood, same impossible truth. She didn't know whether to scream, laugh, or run. All she knew was, she couldn't hide this anymore. Later that morning, in the council chamber, voices rose and clashed like thunder. The queen had made the announcement herself, standing tall before her generals, priests, and nobles, her voice calm, her words sharp. "A new air grows within me," she said. "Life has returned to our people." The room broke into gasps and shouts. Shock moved across every face like fire across dry fields. How is this possible? Who is the father? Is this child truly of royal blood? The queen raised her hand for silence. "The father is a human, Jace of Earth." Now the room exploded. "A human?" Someone cried. "Outrageous!" Spat another. "He must be destroyed at once. Or studied," a cold voice added. "He may be the cure we've waited for." Through the chaos, Princess Sarala walked in. Her voice didn't rise, but it cut through the room like a blade. "There is more," she said. All heads turned. Sarala stood straight, hands at her sides, eyes locked on her mother's. Her voice didn't shake. "I too carry his child." Silence hit the room like a vacuum. Nothing moved, not a breath, not a whisper. Then chaos again. Both of them? Mother and daughter? "This breaks every law. He defiled the throne. He's bewitched them." The queen's face turned pale, her fingers tightening into fists. "Sarala," she whispered, "is this true?" "Yes," Sarala replied, her voice calm. "I checked the data twice." The queen stared at her daughter, a storm in her heart. Was this betrayal? Was this fate? Or something in between? Before anything more could be said, the royal medic entered, holding a glowing scroll of data. He bowed low. "I have analyzed both cases," he said. "The children carry pure Valerian blood, activated by the human genome, not mutated, not forced, natural." He looked up slowly, his voice growing stronger. "What this means is, the human has done what no technology, no science, no male in 1,000 years has done." He paused. "He has awakened our future." Jace, locked in a golden cell beneath the palace, sat quietly as the guards paced outside. He didn't know what was happening above him, only that something had changed. The air felt heavier, like judgment was near. The doors swung open. Soldiers stepped in, their weapons not drawn, but ready. "The council has summoned you," said the lead guard. Jace stood slowly, his face unreadable. "Am I being executed?" he asked dryly. The guard didn't answer, only motioned for him to follow. The walk to the great hall felt longer than ever. Every step echoed with whispers, stares, fear, and wonder. People who once mocked him now looked at him like a god. Or a bomb waiting to go off. When he entered the chamber, the queen was already seated on her throne. Her daughter beside her, both with unreadable expressions. The council stood in a circle around them, faces like carved stone. The queen spoke first, her voice heavy with power and pain. You stand before this court not as a slave, not as an animal, but as the first male in 1,000 years to bring life to this bloodline. Jace blinked, unsure what to say. You have made me a mother again. She continued, and my daughter. Your second child now grows within her. Gasps echoed again. The queen leaned forward. What do you have to say for yourself? Jace looked around the room at all the powerful beings judging him, fearing him, needing him. He took a breath, then said simply, I didn't plan any of this. He turned toward Sarala, then to the queen. I only know this. I didn't force anything. I didn't lie. I just tried to be human. He paused. And if that's what broke your rules, then maybe your rules need to change. The chamber fell silent. Even the queen's eyes widened slightly. Something inside her shifted. For the first time, she saw not a threat, but a beginning. Asterisk. The Grand Hall of Velaria had never been this full, not even during wars, not during coronations, not even when peace had been signed after the Great Divide. Nobles, warriors, scholars, even common citizens gathered at the edges of the sky-tinted marble floor, all waiting for one thing, the fate of the human. Jace stood alone at the center, no chains, no armor, just his simple clothes and a calm face. Yet the weight on his shoulders was heavier than a planet. Above him, the High Council formed a circle, their robes fluttering slightly in the breeze. From the dome's vents, their faces masked, their voices carried through the room like thunder. You are accused, spoke the chief arbiter, of disrupting the royal bloodline, dividing the succession, and shaking the order of this world. Murmurs rose in the crowd, some in anger, some in awe, and yet, the arbiter continued, you have also achieved what no male has done in 10 centuries. The queen watched silently from her throne, her face carved from stone. Beside her, Princess Sarala stood tall, her hands resting gently on her growing belly, her chin raised. Her eyes locked on Jace. The council began to argue. He must be destroyed. For the safety of the crown. No, he must be studied. His genetics could rebuild us. He is a danger, a disruption. He is a miracle. Back and forth they went, power clashing against power, pride against progress, tradition against survival. Jace listened, but said nothing, until one councilwoman pointed at him and hissed, he has done all this without permission. He forced himself into the line of succession. He has tainted the throne. That word tainted struck something deep in Sarala. She stepped forward. No, she said loudly, her voice ringing clear. He didn't taint anything. I chose him. Gasps echoed. I went to him in the garden, she said, not as a princess, but as a person, and what happened was my decision. Her mother looked at her, something breaking behind the queen's cold eyes. And if you think I'm not worthy to choose my child's father, then maybe it's not him who doesn't belong here, Sarala finished. The room fell silent again. The queen stood slowly. I too chose, she said quietly, not as a ruler, but as a woman who had lost hope. She looked down at Jace. He gave me back something I thought was gone forever, not just life in my womb, but life in my soul. The council stood frozen, unsure of what to do with a truth so raw, so human. Finally, the chief arbiter raised both hands. Enough, he said. We cannot ignore that 2 royal heirs grow in this man's name. He turned to Jace. By our law, no male may father heirs from both queen and princess. The bloodline must not divide. It must remain pure, unified. Then choose, came another voice from behind the pillars. The crowd turned. It was High Matron Vexa, the oldest living mind on Velaria. Rarely seen, older than the queen herself. Her voice soft but sharper than a blade. "Let the human choose," she said. Walking slowly into the center, her staff tapping the floor. "Let him decide who becomes queen and who becomes his mate." The crowd broke into a roar of protest, outrageous. "He's not Valerian, he's a male." But the matron raised her hand and silence followed. She looked at Jace, her eyes deep pools of knowledge and pain. "You have done what none of us could, now tell us. Who do you choose? The queen or the princess?" Jace didn't move at first. The whole galaxy seemed to hold its breath. He looked at the queen, her strength, her scars, her quiet sadness. He looked at Sarala, her fire, her courage, her belief in him. He stepped forward, and then he shook his head. "I choose neither," he said firmly. The council gasped. The queen's eyes widened. Sarala stepped back in shock. Jace raised his voice. "I will not choose between mother and daughter, between two women who deserve to be honored, not divided." He turned to the council. "You want to talk about bloodlines, about rules, about tradition, but your traditions have left your cradles empty and your hearts cold." He looked at both women again. "If I've done anything good here, it's because they let me, not because I own them, not because they belong to me." He stepped back, chest rising and falling. "So if you must kill me, then do it. But don't ask me to break what little humanity I've left." The room was quiet, so quiet. Then, slowly the queen stepped down from her throne, walked to Jace, and did something no one expected. She knelt, not in surrender, but in respect. "I gave him a choice," she said, "and he proved he is not just a male. He is a leader." Sarala walked beside her and knelt too, resting one hand on Jace's shoulder. "If the future has any chance, it begins with him." The council looked on, stunned, and from the crowd, applause began to rise. Soft at first, then louder and louder, until the entire chamber roared, not with anger, but with hope. Asterisk. The entire galaxy was still talking about it, on the news streams of 12 star systems, in whisper hubs on mining moons, and even in the deepest corners of forgotten colonies. One story echoed louder than any war, louder than any alliance. The human refused the throne, and both royals kneeled. Jace hadn't returned to the cell after the trial. He wasn't a prisoner anymore, but he wasn't free either. The palace had given him his own chamber, soft light panels, a real bed, even a window facing the royal gardens, yet none of it made sense to him. He paced the room slowly, his hand running through his hair, his heart still pounding. He had faced death, faced judgment, faced two powerful women who both carried his children, and he had chosen neither, or so he thought. A soft knock broke the silence. He turned, and the door opened without waiting for permission. Princess Sarala walked in, dressed in a flowing black robe. No guards, no advisors, just her. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, her eyes searching his face. "You really meant it?" she asked. "That you'd rather die than choose between us?" Jace nodded slowly. "I'm not a king, Sarala. I'm just a man trying not to destroy something good." She walked closer, her eyes softer now. "But what if you didn't have to choose in that way?" Jace frowned. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the door opened again. This time, it was the queen. She entered silently, her royal presence still powerful even in simple robes. She looked at her daughter, then at Jace. "We talked," she said simply. Jace blinked. "You, too?" Sarala nodded. "About everything, about the future, about the children, and—" she hesitated. "About you." The queen stepped forward. "We realized something simple, something we forgot while ruling a dying world." Jace waited. The queen raised her chin. "You're not a weapon, not a cure, not a threat. You're a father, and maybe more than that." Sarala took his hand gently. "We both chose you, not for power, not for politics, but because in you, we saw something real." Jace looked between them, his throat tight. "What are you saying?" The queen's eyes softened. We don't want to fight over you. We don't want to tear each other apart like the old days." Sarala smiled. "We want to raise our children together, build something new, something no queen or princess has ever done before." Jay stepped back, stunned. "You want all three of us, like a family?" The queen nodded slowly. "Call it strange, call it impossible, but after everything we've lost, we want something honest." Jace looked at them, both strong, proud, beautiful in different ways. Not perfect, but real, and for once, he didn't feel like a prisoner or a pawn. He felt human, and maybe more than human, he whispered. "Then let's do it." That night, the announcement was made across the stars. A royal union unlike any other. The queen and her daughter would share the throne for the first time in Valerian history. And the human, Jace of Earth, would stand beside them as equal partner. Not a king, but something new, something bold, a symbol of peace, of change, of life. The people of Velaria reacted with shock, then with questions, and slowly with hope. Not everyone accepted it. Some called it heresy. Some called it the end of tradition. But the ones who mattered, the mothers who had lost children, the fathers who had given up on love, the families who had waited years for hope, they saw something else. They saw rebirth. In the days that followed, scientists confirmed what was once unthinkable. Jace's genetics had triggered dormant fertility, not just in the royals, but in others as well. Slowly, carefully, more human compatibility experiments began under peaceful, voluntary programs. For the first time in centuries, the maternity chambers of the capital lit up with soft lights. Babies were coming. Life was coming back, and at the center of it all, Jace sat in the royal garden. A child's blanket in one hand, blue flowers blooming at his feet, and a future growing far beyond the stars. It began with whispers on the outer colonies, soft rumors floating between stars. People didn't believe it at first. After all, no human had ever made history in the Valerian Empire until Jace. But now, there was no denying it. The first royal child was born under a glowing sky. The baby's cry echoed through the capital, carried by wind, by song, by hope itself. The queen held the child in her arms, her face softer than anyone had ever seen, her silver hair glowing as the baby reached for her. She had named him Solon, meaning second sunrise in the ancient tongue. Only 2 months later, Sarala gave birth as well. Her daughter came into the world with wide eyes and tiny glowing veins under her skin. She gripped Jace's finger tightly as if she already knew him, already trusted him. Sarala named her Ori, meaning light from a new world. The galaxy changed that day, not because of war, not because of conquest, but because 2 women, once separated by power and duty, had chosen to share the same path, and one human had helped them walk it together. The queen no longer ruled alone. Sarala stood beside her at all court meetings, her voice just as sharp, just as wise. The people no longer saw her as the second mother. They saw her as a leader, equal in every way. And Jace? He stood quietly behind them, not seeking titles, not asking for power, just being there, changing the world by simply existing. Alien historians struggled to write it down. The story was too strange, too human. A single man who had come from Earth's dirt-covered streets, now father to a new dynasty. Soon, other planets began requesting audiences with the royal family. Leaders, scientists, even ancient enemies arrived not with weapons, but with questions. How did you do it? Is the human genetic code the answer? Can we bring life back to our world too? Jace never called himself a hero. He always said the same thing. I just listened. And I loved his honesty, his strength, his loyalty to both queen and princess. It wasn't just rare, it was revolutionary. Across the stars, laws began to change. Interspecies unions once forbidden were now celebrated. Children of mixed bloodlines began to appear, glowing with health, eyes shining with promise, and at the center of it all, 2 tiny heirs, Solon and Ori, laughed. cried, crawled, and grew. They played together in the royal gardens, chased by tiny flying bots, watched over by two mothers. And one human father, one day, Solon fell while running. His knee scraped, he cried. Not because of the pain, but because it frightened him. Jace was there in seconds, scooping him up gently, holding him close. "It's okay, little star," he whispered. "You're stronger than you think." The queen watched from a distance, smiling, her hand resting lightly on Sarala's arm. "He'll be a good king someday," she said softly. Sarala nodded. "Not just a king," she replied. "A good man, like his father." Jace didn't hear them. He was too busy teaching Solon how to get up again, showing him that falling wasn't the end, but just part of learning. That's what Jace had done for their whole world. Taught them how to rise again, how to live again, how to hope again. Velaria was no longer a fading empire of sorrow. It was now a beacon, the first kingdom reborn by love, not by bloodline alone, but by choice, change, and connection. And the galaxy watched, some in wonder, some in fear, but many in awe. The story of the human who got both mother and daughter pregnant was no longer just a tale whispered behind royal doors. It was history. It was legacy. It was the beginning of something greater, something deeply human.